Here is my recap on Dexter Season 5, Episode 12, the final episode of the season. This episode was entitled The Big One. And there were some really big revelations that came out in this episode, and it was very interesting on how it ended. So we left the last episode with Dexter trying to find Lumen. She was taken by Chase, self-help guru. Well, in this episode, she's being taken by him. She's in a car. She's in the trunk. That's where she is for a good portion of the first third of the episode. Chase is taking her somewhere. Well, at the same time, we've got Dexter looking for her. And he decides to go back to the police department and do the last-ditch effort to try and find out where she is. And he does some research and finds out that he actually has some property under his old name, that Chase, his old name, Eugene, he's got property under the name, he's got one property under the name of Eugene. And it's this camp. And he figures this camp is probably where he killed all of these women. He decides to head off to this camp. At the same time, you have, well, before he is actually able to head off, he's at home waiting for the call from the person he put the search into at the police department. Lo and behold, his entire family shows up. His son Harrison, his babysitter, the grandparents, his wife's parents show up. Well, his dead wife's parents show up. Astor and Cody, Harrison, they're all there. And they're there for the weekend to help celebrate Harrison's 1-year birthday. Astor and Cody let Dexter know, we want to stay with you for the whole summer. But he has to get out of there to go rescue Lumen. So he heads off to the camp. Now, at the same time, we've got Chase, who's heading to this camp, and he ends up coming to a stop sign. Well, a stoplight. And there's a guy there who sells, I can't remember if he was selling fruit or something, but he can hear somebody banging in the back of the car. As soon as the light turns green, Chase is off, and he takes Lumen to this house. He's talking to Dexter and tells Dexter, that her life is ticking away and that they'll never be found. And he brings Lumen to the house where she was at, where she had been tortured, and notices that she has a different look in her eyes. He gets her tied up. And he says, you're different from the last time you were in here. And that's when she kicks him real hard and tries to escape. But she almost gets out of an exit, but there's a chain link fence back there and she can't get out at all. And so she gets tied up and they're just sitting there waiting for Dexter. Now, while this is all going on, before Dexter can even get there, and this is something I almost forgot to talk about. Before he's able to head off when he finds out where the camp is, or he's about to find out where the camp is, he ends up getting called to a crime scene, Liddy's crime scene. And at Liddy's crime scene, they're all going in because they find out that he was killed, and Dexter's called in to examine the blood. So he goes in to examine it. You've got everybody from the department is there, and you've got Masuka doing some stuff, and he finds the gear that was checked out from the police department. You've got Quinn there, and Quinn ends up having a conversation with LaGuerta and says, I pretty much need to get a lawyer. And she's wondering why. She looks down and sees blood on his shoe that's dried up. She gets information that Liddy had actually forged Quinn's signature to get the equipment, but she knows all of this. And he says, I need a lawyer up. I'm not going to say anything else. So he gets sent into the department to be questioned. Has a heart-to-heart with Deborah. And Deborah says, I'm going to stay here with you. I want to find out what's going on. Please tell me why you were doing all this and what was going on. Why was Liddy killed? He has an idea as to why, but he's not willing to say it because he knows it's going to ruin his relationship with Deborah forever. Dexter's able to get away from that scene. That's when he gets the address and he heads off to this campground. Gets to the campground, and when he's driving there, he's having a conversation with his dad, his dark passenger, and he actually ends up crashing the car. He gets distracted and crashes the car. He hits a construction crane that's there and flips the car. And as he's getting out, guess who shows up? Chase does, and ends up basically tying Dexter up and bringing him back to the house. So they're all tied. Both him and Lumen are tied up. At the same time, you have Deborah back at the department seeing if she can find some information that would lead to Chase before he can get out of the country. And that's when she gets some information from another cop that there was this guy that called in about this vehicle where somebody was supposedly in the back when Chase was at that stoplight. And she goes out there to talk to this individual. She doesn't know Spanish and swears she's going to learn Spanish after this conversation. And that's when the guy says, basically tells her there's a camp down the road. So she decides to head out there. During this time, Dexter is sitting there and having that conversation with Chase, and Chase talking about all kinds of nonsense stuff. and he starts to open up Dexter's thing of weapons, what he uses to kill with. And he notices all of a sudden that one of the knives is missing. And that's when Dexter kind of reaches out and stabs him in the foot, gets the upper hand. Him and Lumen are able to kill Chase, get him on a table, and she does the deed. She actually does the killing herself after she gets enraged by some of the stuff that Chase says. That's when they're in the back cleaning everything up, getting ready to dispose of the body when Deborah shows up at that place. Now, she can't see them because they're separated by the plastic that Dexter uses, but he didn't set this up because it's not his kill place. But there is plastic that they must have used when they tortured the women. And so she calls in there. Now, she's had this idea that this is a couple of people doing this. Number 13, the girl who got away, plus an accomplice. So she tells them both to drop their weapons. They do, and they never speak. She says, I know what you've done. I know who you are. I have a feeling of who you are. Someone starts to move, and she puts a shot out, and she said, I said, don't move. And she says, I need to call this in. And Dexter is freaking out that he's finally going to get caught as this killer. And she says, I'm going to call this in. People are going to be swarming this place within the hour. I would recommend you guys be gone when this all happens. So she leaves. She waits to call it in. In the meantime, Dexter and Lumen definitely get Chase out of there. They go off, and one of the scenes is them on the boat at night, dropping off the body parts into the water. On the way back, Lumen has this you could tell this release has happened. She can be free. She can be calm again. And they're heading back to the shore. The next morning, they slept together. And the next morning, Dexter gets up and has to leave. And when he gets home that night, Lumen tells him, my dark passenger is gone. I no longer have the need to do this. That feeling to kill is gone. She goes, I know it's not from you, but she goes, I need to leave. I can't be here anymore. I need to move on. So he's kind of upset about that, and he sees his vision of a future life, having a normal life with somebody who can be like him, disappearing in the rearview mirror. At the same time, earlier that day, he was at the police department, and he needed to do the blood work on Quinn's shoe. So he knows it's Liddy's blood. Deborah comes in. They have a quick conversation. He doesn't say, he says, I haven't run the blood yet. I'm going to do that now. She leaves, and he runs the blood. So you expect that Quinn is going to be arrested and gone. Well, the very last scene of this season was Dexter at Harrison's birthday party, where everybody's there from the force, his family, his wife's family. All of a sudden, you see Quinn walk up, and Quinn thanks Dexter. He knows Dexter hid the truth so that he could be free. He says, I owe you one. So we know that Quinn still has his suspicions. Dexter knows that Quinn knows. We've got Deborah, who came very close to finding out who her brother is. And she realizes at the end, she has this conversation saying, you never really know who people are. People change, that sort of a thing. And the last shot is Dexter with his son in his lap. He goes to blow out the 1-year-old candle, and you can see Dexter's whole demeanor changes. He thought he was going to be able to have a real life, and now he realizes he's got to be that hardcore killer going forward and get back to doing what he does best. So it's kind of an interesting end of the season. There are still some story threads that are definitely going to bleed into these next couple of seasons. So that's how Dexter season 5 ends. So we're going to see what happens next. Lumen did leave town, so Dexter is truly alone. And as it stands at this point, she is the only person who's still alive that knows Dexter's secret. Everyone else who's ever known his secret is dead. So we're going to see what happens in these last 3 seasons. I'll be starting season 6 here very shortly. So look for those recaps coming up very soon. I'll do a quick recap on the overall season, and we'll see you guys on season 6.